Hi, I'm Beth, Liston, physician and state legislator, and passionate about teaching people in public health, legislative advocacy. Today, we're going to be talking about meeting with your state legislator. We talked a little bit about testimony and why getting engaged in the committee process can matter, sharing your expertise. And now we're going to talk a little bit about how to get that connection with your representatives or with those on the committee that deal with bills that you care about. This is a really important way to advocate both for yourself and for public health and the policies you care about. So I already had this screen up, our basic site, www.legislature.ohio.gov will get you the ability to find a representative and get that contact information. There's a phone number, there's a fax number, which is obviously not that common these days. There's an email, you just click the button, you send an email, and all you have to do is say, hey, I'm a constituent, I'd like to meet with you. Or, hey, I'm an expert in public health, and I want to talk about this issue. Send that email, you make that phone call, and you'll get a meeting. It may be with the legislator, it might be with the office or the aide. It depends a little bit on the timing and the day, but you'll have the opportunity to share your thoughts and create a connection. When you do this, and as you think about what to talk about in a meeting, you really want to make sure you have a sense of what you want to address. Right? What is the problem? Do you feel, are there problems with clean water? Or is there lead contamination? Do we need to be thinking about addressing a public health pandemic? Which obviously on people's minds these days, and hopefully we'll have good processes in place moving forward. What is the problem and why is it important to your target audience? In this case, we're talking about your state representative or your state senator. Why do they care? What do you want them to do? And when do you want them to do it? And this is general communication principles in meetings, but it's going to be even more important when you're reaching out to a legislator about a problem that you're passionate with or passionate on. You want to do your homework. What is the problem? So identify why the issue is important to you. Right? What are you seeing? The more you can personalize it and bring it down to a level that makes a connection, the better. Talk about real people, real experiences. You want to have some facts and figures to be able to quote or perhaps leave on a sheet that you give them, but that's not usually what connects people or gets them convinced to a point of view that you have to share. So that the facts and figures back up the real story or the real reason you care about it. If there's a bill, know the bill number, know the name of the sponsor of that bill, and where it stands in the committee process. If there's not a bill, if it's just an idea, if you want someone to take up the idea, ideally you'd know what you'd like them to do. But if you are talking about something that's already in process, know that background. There are hundreds of bills. Each legislator is not going to necessarily know them off the top of their head. It could help if you put it in the email, actually, so that they know the content of the meeting. But if you don't know it then, at least make sure that when you have the meeting, you do know it. And then do your homework about the person you're meeting with. Why does it matter to your target? So who are you meeting with? What's their name and general biography? What committees are they on? That really impacts what they can do to address the bill that you're talking about or the issue more broadly. Where is their district? Is it a rural area? Is it an urban area? What party do they belong to? That impacts some of the more controversial issues a lot. Do they have a voting record? Do you know that they support this, or is this the first time they've heard of it, or have they generally been opposed to what you're bringing forth? What to do and when. You want to be able to give them something concrete. Make that specific ask. Ask for support. Change a specific law. If you have a fact sheet, get those facts and figures down, but then also what the ask is on the fact sheet. And think about ways that they can get in touch with you. Leave your contact information. Ask the legislative aide to keep you updated. They can send you emails when the bill that you're following has different levels of hearing, or they can let you know when they're looking for supporters to come in and testify. That legislative aid can be very helpful in keeping you connected. So let's take a look at some concrete searches. So I mentioned this page. This is that homepage, legislature.ohio.gov. You can search for your representative. You put in your address here. It'll bring up the people that represent you. And I did that. I put in actually a library in Morrow County as the address. So this isn't a real person's house. But if you lived in Morrow County, you're this library, these would be the individuals that represent you. We have Senator Dave Burke in the 26th District and Representative Reardon McLean. So if you were a constituent in this area, you'd want to know this and reach out to these gentlemen individually. But it's helpful to do that homework, right? To take a look. Okay, who is Senator Burke? And if you click right here, it is going to bring you to an overview about Senator Burke. You can kind of scroll down, see that he's a pharmacist and small business owner. He cares about prescription drug abuse. Give a little bit about his background, what he's passionate about, news releases that he's given. You can go into sponsored bills. It only gives you numbers, so a little harder, and you can click on each number, but that may take a while. Co-sponsored bills, you're gonna have a ton, because anytime there's a vote on a bill, everyone has the opportunity to put their name as co-sponsor in the end. There's not committees on this very front page, but if you go under bio and you scroll down, you'll see that Senator Burke is on a number of committees that might intersect with your interests, right? He's the chairperson of the Health, Human Services, and Medicaid Committee. That's the committee in the Senate that deals with most of the health issues. So that's really promising. You know that probably he cares about a health issue, even if he's not necessarily involved in that bill that you're talking about or the change in the law that you're talking about. He has that interest and commitment to working within health. And in fact, on the Finance Committee, he's on the Health and Medicaid Subcommittee. That's a focus for him. What about Representative McLean? Well, if you click on his, the House site looks a little different than the Senate site, but you have that same sort of opportunity. You can go to his biography, get a sense of his background. He's a new lawmaker, as opposed to Senator Burke, who's been here for a little while. You can see what committees he's on: economic, workforce development, transportation, public safety, ways and means. You can click on those sites and get a sense of what those committees hear in terms of bills. These are the bills that he has primary sponsorship. Co-sponsor becomes big. If you take a look at how many he's done, right? Again, because everyone has the opportunity to co-sponsor. So you might not stop here. You can say, all right, Senator Burke is probably open to what I have to say in the health perspective, or at least he has a background. He may not agree with the issue that you're bringing forward. He may not actually share the perspective that you do, and there's more information that you can look into about that, but at least you know that's an interest. What about your representative? Well, you have the opportunity to search in a lot of ways. You'll recognize this is that legislature.ohio.gov site. If you go to legislation and search, you can actually search by primary sponsor. So here I've searched House bills, not resolutions, because resolutions have a tendency to be long. People are often honored by resolutions, and they tend to not be specific policy, right? It's more of a statement than a policy. And then I searched for the primary sponsors. For Rep. McLean as what he's primary sponsored, And you can see, all right, it's hearing protection, riding a motorcycle, income state tax credit for fuel, motorcycle headlight standards, and visitation with incompetent or ward if denied. So although you may be advocating on something related to a guardianship or reward, or perhaps you're advocating on something related to motorcycle safety standards, at which point Rep. McLean is clearly the person to speak with. But otherwise, his focus hasn't largely been health. That may or may not be important, but he's not on health committees, so you might find other things that you want to connect with him about. Or the ask maybe, can you reach out to your colleagues on the health committee and speak with them about how important this bill is? Or connect you with the person that is probably the strongest advocate that maybe you'd want to speak with, and he can help you make that introduction. If you're looking about more of a representative's history on a particular issue, let's say you're looking at a more controversial issue, something like gun laws. If you want to have a better sense of the background, there's a couple things you can do. One, if you know a law that you're looking at, if you want to see who supported it and who didn't, you can always search for that particular bill number or keyword. If you said put in the word gun, you can search for all the bills that had anything to do with guns, and you can look at the voting history and record on those. Now, a lot of those bills don't necessarily have votes. So something that's really helpful is to think about co-sponsorship. As I've mentioned, you can co-sponsor a bill right when it's introduced, and you can co-sponsor a bill when it's had a vote. So if you search Rep. McLean and just put co-sponsor, you have the opportunity to see what bills he's said, hey, I support this enough, I'm going to put my name on it. If it's over here on status as enrolled, that means it hasn't actually had a vote. So he put his name on it early on. He said, I feel strongly about this. I feel it's a good bill, and I'm willing to support it even before it goes through the process. And as passed by the House, it means after it's been a vote in the House, as enrolled, it's a law. So these are later in the co-sponsoring process. So you have an opportunity to look through and see what bills have been co-sponsored early. Now, there's a lot that goes into that. Sometimes it's about the person who sponsors it more than the particular issue. If there's someone that you know and trust and feel that they have good policy and you guys generally agree, you may be more likely to co-sponsor, even if it isn't your primary interest, that you do have the opportunity to get that sense of what the lawmakers feel is important or are comfortable sponsoring early on and overall, and you can go through these and spend a little bit of time on what those bills are. So there's a lot of information you can glean from looking at the website about the biography of the committees, the bills that they've been a part of, the press releases that they've given, and look for those opportunities of overlap, those places where you might connect with that individual, whether it's related to the story that you share, or whether it's related to just that relationship building, that you care about the same things they care about. And that helps build advocacy on that one-on-one level, which can really make a difference overall. So hopefully people will start searching for their legislator, trying to meet with them, and then making those connections for healthcare and public health in general. I want to spend a couple more minutes just showing a video that I created that hopefully gets to some of the nuts and bolts in Ohio and answer some questions that you might have about the process. So let's take a 5-minute video. We'll watch it and then close.
Hi, I'm Bill Cotton, co-chair of the Advocacy Committee for the Columbus Medical Association. We're putting together the Advocacy 101 program so that you can learn how to successfully and comfortably talk with your legislators about bills or topics that are important to you and the medical community.
Hi, I'm Beth Liston. I am the state representative for Ohio House District 21. I'm also an internal medicine and pediatrics physician and the president-elect for the Columbus Medical Association. So in this video, we're going to talk about how important it is to meet with your legislator and how easy it is. We're going to go through steps to make sure that everyone feels comfortable sharing their knowledge and expertise on important issues in our state. People in the State House often come from various backgrounds. There's a lot of law, there's a lot of business, almost none has ever really practiced medicine or healthcare. They rely on people like you to come in and share what it looks like, say this is what it actually means for people. And that's a really critical part of lawmaking. Well, the first step in setting up a meeting is making sure you know who your legislator is. You can just go to the ohiolegislature.gov, put in your address, and it'll tell you who you're represented by. Once you know that, you can send them an email or make a phone call. Both work, both will largely get to a legislative aid. But if you say that you want to meet, they'll make sure that happens. When you're contacting the office, I think the things you want to say is, one, if you're a constituent, you can meet with legislators that you're not a constituent of. That's fine. But then you're going to want to explain why you want to meet if you're not. If you have a bill or an experience that you feel like is really important because it relates to your practice, it relates to patients that you see, and you have knowledge that you think is really helpful in the process, say that up front. It will make sure that you and the meeting that you set up is appropriately focused on the things that you want to accomplish. Don't be surprised if things change. If you get a last minute call saying, hey, instead of coming up to the office, can you meet at the State House in this hallway? Or instead of meeting with the legislator, the aide is available. Keep that mental mindset in place when you go in, that it's often similar to medicine sometimes, and that things just are not completely predictable in terms of how long it'll take. So on the day of the meeting, parking can be a little tricky. Come a little early so that it isn't a stressor. You can park under the State House or under the Rife building. Truthfully, unless you get here really early on session days, that's likely to be full. Look for street parking when you arrive. There's plenty around. If that's full, there's a number of different downtown garages. You can park in the Columbus Commons or the Huntington Center. They have garages that you can pay to park there as well. So state representatives all have offices in the Rife Center, in the Rife building. We occupy floors 10 through 14. So you're gonna need to come into the Rife Center, check in at the lobby desk. They'll give you a name badge. You need to show an ID to do it, so make sure you bring that. Then you're gonna wind up going up through security and up through to the third floor. There'll be someone at the third floor that is at a desk that can get you through another security check to somewhere between 10 and 14. When you get off the elevators, there's a central lobby that has a receptionist. They'll call the legislative office. The legislative office typically will send an aide out, or the aide will come out, or sometimes an intern, occasionally the member themselves, but someone will meet you in the lobby and bring you back to the office. The senators have offices actually in the State House. There are fewer of them, so they have a bigger space in the State House building. So you just enter the building through the security on 3rd Street, and then look in the Senate building for signs in terms of the number where your senator will be at. Think about how it might impact them directly, because when they are done with the conversation, they're gonna wanna know, okay, now what? Like, I hear you, I understand how this is important, but what can I do? And then you wanna tell them. You wanna say specifically, concretely, this is important why for my patients, and I need you to vote against the bill. Or I need you to make sure the bill doesn't have this part in it. Think up front what you hope to accomplish so that you're best prepared to do it during that meeting time.
All right. So hopefully it's a little demystified. You can get yourself ready and prepared. Figure out who your representatives are. If you don't already know, reach out to them and set up a meeting. And you have the opportunity to impact policy. Thanks and have a great day.